Hello, welcome to Module 1G, all about how to edit values in DataFrames. So we just went over how to access your values using your at, lock, ilock functions, and now we can use these same functions to edit our data frame by reassigning values. So I'm actually going to just open up a new cell here so I can run just a little bit at a time. And what we're going to do, so let's see, first off, I'm going to just pick out a little segment of the data frame, and let's take a look at that. What? Sorry. I use a different keyboard when I make these videos that's quieter than my normal one, but I also always press the wrong keys. There we go. So this is our little data frame segment that we're going to play with. So I'm going to run this code right here. So made our data frame segment. It looked like this, but now, actually here, I'll just copy all of this. There we go. Okay, we make our data frame segment, we print it out. Now what we're going to do right here is we use IAT to select a certain value in that data frame, 0, 0, and then we assign it to something new. I did a string called iChanged. So now when I run this, we have our original little segment, and then now we can see where we assigned that specific value to something else. That has changed. And that's really what you do in data frames. If you want to edit something, you select what you want to change and you assign it to something else. And then it will change. You do need to make sure that, the things you assign it to are the same sizes. And we'll get into that just a little bit. So that was how we replaced a singular value. But we can also replace chunks of values. We can replace whole columns, we can replace whole rows, we can replace parts of rows, parts of columns, and we can replace whole segments. Anything that we can section out, we can replace. So what I'm doing right here is I've used lock to come and select a segment. So I've said, okay, row 3 going from precip type to apparent temperature. And so that right there happens to be kind of 3 values in a row. So I need to replace it with 3 values in a row, which I have done saying new row, new row, new row. I'm going to print this out. And we can see that now, before we had this, and now I have replaced that whole row. One note right here is we do get a warning. It says setting an item of incompatible data type is deprecated and will raise an error in future versions of Pandas. So what's going on here is I've done something that usually you'd never want to do, and that is temperature as a column is numerical data type. It's an integer, and so is apparent temperature, and I have gone and just slapped a string in there. And so pretty much what Pandas is saying is hey, this works right now, but it's a bad idea. So in future versions, that's not even going to work because it's such a bad idea. So not something you should actually do. You want to keep your data types consistent, but it does do a nice job illustrating how you can replace values. So that's for specific values, but what if you want to create or replace a whole column? So you can perform, in Pandas, you can perform pretty much any mathematical operation on a column or part of a column in order to edit it. So that's what we're going to look at right here. And a quick note as we get started is that data frames and Pandas are not edited in place. So what that means is if I take this little chunk of code right here, so this says, okay, take the temperature C column from the data frame, multiply it by 9/5 and add 32. So if, let's see, beforehand, I'm going to print this column. And then I'm going to make that change, and then I'm going to run that, and then run this. So you'll see that both times the column prints out exactly the same. I haven't actually changed it. And that's because what this code right here is going to do is it is going to return a column, which is the temperature column multiplied by 9/5 plus 32. But it's not actually going to edit that column in the data frame. So if I just say do this to a column, it does that to a column and returns it. It does not change that column. And that's what I mean when I say that data frames are not edited in place. So if I actually want to do anything with this expression, I need to assign it to something. So now what I could do here is I could come and say new column. And now if at the end of this, I return my new column, now that is different. We can see that that mathematical operation worked. We were able to save it, but it did not change the column. So quick note there. So if what I want to do right here is create a new column, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to say df temperature Fahrenheit, F Fahrenheit, is equal to df temperature Celsius times 9/5 plus 32. So currently, if I come and look at my data frame, dot columns, can you tell this is my favorite attribute of data frames, columns? I use it all the time. I can see that there are temperature columns in Celsius, but there's no Fahrenheit in this data frame right now. And because I'm an American and I've grown up using Fahrenheit, I want to see things in Fahrenheit. So just by saying data frame and, kind of calling this column name and then assigning it to something, just by doing that, I am creating a new column. So I don't have to do create new or anything. I just kind of have to name it and give it something and it appears. So that's what I'm going to do. Right here, I'm creating a new column called temperature Fahrenheit, and then I'm also creating a parent temperature Fahrenheit. So I'm going to run this, and now we can see, okay, right here, we have our Celsius temperatures, and then right over here, we have our Fahrenheit temperatures. So that's a way to create a new column. Now, I could also use this to change a column. So for example, I'm not actually going to run this, but if I did this and kind of assigned it back to itself, that would actually change the column. Now, I don't want to do that, but if I wanted to change a column, that's how I would do it. So let's delete that, and there we go. Okay, so that's how you add or change a column. What if you want to drop a row or column? So we can do that using the .drop method. So up above, I created these columns with Fahrenheit, and now I've decided, well, I want a data frame that's just in Fahrenheit. We have our one that has Fahrenheit and Celsius. I just want Fahrenheit. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new data frame. So this is data frame Fahrenheit, and I'm going to set that equal to this right here. So I'm saying data frame dot drop, and then the first argument I'm giving it is a list of the columns I want to drop. So that's temperature C and a parent temperature C, and then I have to specify the axis. So the dot drop function can actually be used to drop columns or rows. So if I want it to drop rows, then that's axis equals 0, which I think is the default if you just don't say anything. But if I want it to drop columns, then I need to specify axis equal to 1. So I'm going to go ahead and run that, and now I have this new data frame. that, as you can see, has no Celsius, but it does have Fahrenheit. So that's how you do it. That's how you drop rows. And just another quick reminder here, as far as not editing in place. Again, if I just grab this code right here and run it, you might think, oh no, I've just dropped those columns out of the data frame. But I have not. Again, data frames are not edited in place. So unless I go and like assign the data frame to this, it's not going to do anything. You can see they are still in there. Now, if I did data frame equals dataframe.drop, then that would actually drop those columns. But that is something I definitely don't want to do. Why don't I want to do that? Because if I go and I drop these columns and I run this cell and, well, actually, okay, here, I'll do it just to show you. I'll wreck my whole thing. So if I go and I drop these in my DF data frame, there you go, they're dropped, seems fine. But if at any point I decide, oh, maybe I didn't get that formula right, maybe it was actually 8/5, not 9/5, and come up and run this cell, it's broke because now my DF data frame, my initial data frame, doesn't include these rows. So in general, that's something I really try not to do. If I'm going to drop columns, I just create a new data frame to not have those columns. I try not to drop columns from kind of like my original data frame unless I'm just really sure that I'm never using them. But these, where I've used those columns to create something, I don't want to go drop them. You know, it's just going to cause a pain. So that's why down here, when I knew I didn't want them, I created a new data frame, DF Fahrenheit, to have that selection of the columns. So now to kind of like unbreak things, what I'm going to have to do is come here, and this button right here says, oh, well, no, first I'm getting rid of that code because that's what caused my problem. But now I can use this button that says execute above cells. So that's going to go back through and rerun all the cells in my data frame, or all the cells in my notebook, and that's going to kind of fix things because yeah, everything will have been ran in order, and I no longer have that bad cell, which is deleting those columns. So yeah, that was that on editing data frames.